Hello and welcome back. I'm Nicole, a cottage witch, and today I'm going to try and record a quick VR to Silvia at Fairlight Tarot. This is the Beloved Monster Decks, and I'll see how it goes. The sun has set already because it is just that part of the year where it sets before I have time to do anything. So I will find out when I've done this if the lighting is presentable enough, but I expect it'll have to do. Anyway, she came up with a list of 10 monsters from either books or movies, or possibly TV shows. I'm not sure. I don't watch a lot of movies or TV shows, so I'm a bit out of touch with some of the monsters on the list, but some of them I know. So I thought I'd give it a go. The first one is my favorite. It's the Frankenstein, a collage deck that is misunderstood, but that has a heart of gold. And for that, I picked the Death Doula Oracle. The Death Doula Oracle is so new to me that I have not recorded the acquisitions video that it will be included in yet. So brand new. I've only used it a couple of times so far. So I don't have a lot to say about it yet, except that I think it's not as scary as it might look, if that makes sense. And that's the feeling I get from Frankenstein as well. I loved that book. I should reread it again sometime because it's been a good long while. That is fascinating. Calcination. Interesting. I'll have to look that one up. But one of the things I liked about the book is that the monster is not the bad guy. The monster is just the monster. He's just a being who had no control over how he was brought into the world or how he looks. And it turns out that a lot of people, at least the adults in the area, think he's terrifying. But they don't actually know anything about him. Ooh, this is the cover image. Or the book cover image, True Will. Interesting. And so I sort of feel that way about the Death Doula Oracle, at least so far, in that it might sometimes look scary, and the idea of death might be scary. But I think there's actually a gentleness here underneath some of the scarier looking things. Yeah, I think it's got some other things going on that's not just ooh, scary death, you know. So that is my Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's monster, if I'm gonna be really particular about it, which, you know, I might be, because I love that book. The next monster is Dracula, a deck that is sensual and sophisticated. And for that, I've got a nudity warning because the deck I picked is Le Tarot des Femmes Erotiques. One of these days I'll get better at French pronunciation. Maybe after I've gotten better at English pronunciation. Who knows? At any rate, this is a beautiful sensual deck, but I think it also does have a sophistication to it, or maybe it's just because it's from a different time. Maybe at the time these were taken, people didn't think they were very sophisticated. I don't know. But yeah, I find them really very interesting. Bit shiny, sorry. And this is my Dracula, even though the woman, the only female sort of main character, I guess, in Dracula, drove me absolutely around the bend. I mean, it's not the character's fault, it's the writer's fault for writing such a pathetic, I'm so delicate I may faint female character. But one of the things I like about these women is sometimes there's a delicacy, a fragility, a sensualness, but not a I'm so delicate I may faint sort of way. In a lot of these, they're clearly doing what they want on their terms. And I think that's really fascinating. So anyway, that is the Tarot of the Erotic Women. And that is my Dracula. The next one is the Werewolf, a deck that is best used in the full moon. And for that one, I picked the Wild Woman Oracle because actually I don't have a really great reason for that other than it just felt like the one to pick. It's starting to get a bit of a bow in it, but oh well. And the full moon, oh, there's a bit of a glare there, apologies. There's a bit of a wildness with the idea of the full moon, and the moon does feature in quite a lot of these cards. I think, yep, full moon there, crescent moon there, many moon. And I haven't used these maybe as often as I should. Maybe this winter I'll use them some more. But this is the Wild Woman Oracle, and it is my werewolf. Rewilding with Grandmother Moon, with a wolf on it and everything. There we go. Alright, the next one is the Grim Reaper, a deck that feels very final and unmovable. I don't think I have one that feels final in quite the way I think Silvia meant it. So the best I could go with was that feels unmovable in a blunt, this is what the answer is, I don't care much if you don't like it sort of way. And that is the Steampunk Tarot, which I love. Which is not to say I think it's like vicious or anything like that. But blunt, I would say. Is this one shiny too? It might be. I may need a better after 5 p.m. when the sun's gone down situation here, but oh well. So I'll have to do for today. So this is the Grim Reaper, a deck that feels very final and unmovable. Unmovable, I think, is the word for this one. And next is the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And this one I'm not familiar with. I think it's from a movie. I can't remember. I watched Silvia at Fairlight Tarot's video about it, but I'm sure she said where all these creatures are from. And I know some are from movies, but I can't remember about this one. Anyway, the prompt is a deck that loves water, but is not afraid of getting dirty. And I didn't really have a perfect fit for this one. The closest I could come up with is the Tarot of the Abyss, because there is a fluidity, I think, to it. It's so beautiful. I love it. And for just being black and white, it's very emotional. I'm not really sure. Not afraid of getting dirty. I don't think it is. Not afraid of difficult things anyway. I don't know if it wants to get dirty. I like this card. This one too. So this is the sort of, as well as I can fit it, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Alright, next is the Freddy Krueger, a scruffy deck that has a terrifying sense of humor. And I don't know anything about Freddy Krueger or the movie that character is in. Literally 0 things. So I don't really feel like I have a scruffy deck exactly. But the one that I picked as a close enough is the Tarot of the Sweet Twilight, because I think at first glance it can be intimidating or a bit scary. But actually I think it does have a sense of humor. Is this doing that too? So it is. To tilt everything slightly this way. And I don't know this deck super well yet. Although I spent some time just looking at all the images the other day, which I think I might do occasionally this winter, just to get to know the artwork a bit better. Yeah, so I didn't really have an exact match for Scruffy with a terrifying sense of humor, so this is sort of awkward and frightening with a sense of humor. But not intentionally frightening, I don't think. Just if you don't know what to expect, or you're expecting something else. I mean, that's beautiful, I think. Then it might be frightening, at least at first glance. And the next one I also have no idea about the movie, which, although I've seen the image of the doll, which is Chucky, a doll-like deck that may stab you in the back. And so I don't have a really good familiarity with this particular monster, and I don't have a doll-like deck exactly, so this is another as close as I could get. But I picked the Tarot of the Divine, which, I grant you, may seem a bit odd. However, the reason I picked it was because, even though it's beautiful, a lot of these stories are not very pretty, and you may in fact get stabbed in the back in some of them. I find I like that one for Turtle Island, because like with a lot of Grimm's fairy tales before they were Disneyfied, is this doing that too? It's not too bad. Okay. Some of them are pretty dark and pretty brutal, and so I feel that's the case with some of these, where the image that's presented may seem like one thing, the reality may be quite different. So that was as close as I could get it to a monster that I'm sorry to say I'm not familiar with, which is the Chucky, a doll-like deck that may stab you in the back. Where did I, oh, there it is. The next one is a zombie, an airy deck that is hungry for brains. And for that one, I picked the New Era Elements Tarot, because I feel like this deck, I mean, the woman who made it put her PhD accreditation on the cover, and I think it appreciates a certain degree of intelligence, which I'm not suggesting that I necessarily have. However, there's also a element of destruction in a lot of these, and some brutality. So it's intelligent and in some ways light, but in other ways quite disconcerting. And I don't know, carnivorous, power, and it certainly doesn't shy away from the uglier things, the darker, more dangerous aspects of life. It's got quite a lot of the beautiful in there as well. It's a good balance in that regard, I think. But and some of the references I have to look up because I think some of these people are real people. I just don't know who they are. Excuse me. And some of the symbols that have made it onto some of the decks I'm not very familiar with. But I expect they all have a purpose. So I think there's meaning there to get into, which is not always in the guidebook, which is mildly annoying. But yeah, I think this one does appreciate thoughtfulness. So that is my pick for the zombie, an airy deck that is hungry for brains. The next one is the Pennywise the Clown, a deck that is deceivingly whimsical, but it's actually very intense. And this is another one. I know this, the sort of quote-unquote stereotypical monsters in this list, but I don't know the movie or book specific ones. And this is another one that I've seen images of, but don't really know anything about. And I'm not sure. So for those ones, like the other ones, this is, I'm not sure, a perfect fit, but deceivingly whimsical, but actually very intense, I think it does at least apply to the tarot Avatara. Because in the surrealist aspects, there is some whimsy, there's some play, but there's also a lot of pain. And just generally, I think a lot going on beneath the surface, whether that's pain about a specific thing, or anger or joy, or any other intense emotion that's there. I think it's got a lot of that. It's certainly not subtle, I wouldn't say, although there is nuance. There are small additional things that I can notice every time that I haven't noticed before, which I find quite interesting. So this doesn't look maybe very much like Pennywise the Clown, but I feel like it's a deceivingly whimsical deck that's actually very intense. So in that regard, anyway, I feel like it'll have to do. I mean, she's got hummingbirds all up in her hair, but you can't tell me that's not intense. All right, the last one is the Mummy, a deck that is covered in many layers. And for that one, I picked, well, still torn, but I think I'll go with this one anyway, which is the Guardian of the Night Tarot by M.J. Cohen, which, I mean, you could probably say about a lot of collage decks. The main draw to me of those is that they do have many layers. So there's what's at the forefront, what's obvious, and then how the pieces are fit together. Which I guess you could say of paintings too. You've got what's in the foreground and the background and whatnot. I'm not an art critic or anything like that. I just enjoy it. But I feel like maybe at first glance I didn't realize all the layers in this deck and just sort of got it on a whim, I think. But the more I look at it, the more I think there must be something to, like, the angularity of the lines, the patterns, the rhythms, the other motifs that appear elsewhere in the card. And maybe there isn't, but maybe I just need to spend more time. So anyway, I was a bit torn about this because I think there are a lot of decks that probably could fit this prompt of a deck that is covered in many layers. But I had this one out on account of it's fall. Well, it's snowing outside now, so it's not really fall anymore, but it was up until a couple days ago. Yeah, and I find myself getting drawn into small details every now and again, and looking at the cards in a new way, noticing things I hadn't noticed before. So that is the mummy, which doesn't really look anything like a mummy, the prompt, but or the title of the prompt, but oh well. So those are my responses for Beloved Monster Decks, which is a tag that Silvia at Fairlight Tarot created as of my filming this just a few days ago, but it might not go up for about a week or so. So fairly recently, I think. And that's all I've got. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.